What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Legends Rise, an Elder Scrolls Online podcast, the show where we educate players new and old about the game itself, whether it's how to run dungeons, discussing combat, chatting about crafting, posing information about PvP, gabbing about guilds, babbling about builds, and so much more. I'm your host, Marcus Axford, and with me today is my co-host, the beautiful and lovely queen of Cyrodiil herself, Lainy Kirkpatrick. How are you doing today, Lainy?
Well, it's Monday.
It is Monday.
So I should say all you need to know and then some.
It is the 4th of July, which I don't really care about, except there's going to be burgers at the end of the day. So,
I'm here for the food. That's all.
yeah, that's about it anymore with most celebrations. I'm just here for the food. But I swear we can't seem to escape like these bugs and viruses and stuff. I don't know if it's allergies or the summer cold that's been going around, but I might sound a little nasally, a little weird today. So, because I'm very congested, very stuffed up, and I'm like, really? Why? And then we're like 45 minutes late for recording because OBS is dumb. I had to restart my computer because it wouldn't. I could hear everything else. I could hear Spotify. I could hear you guys. I could hear everything else, but I couldn't hear OBS for the intro music for some reason. And I know for a fact that for everyone else it's going to sound probably really cool. I don't know, but it's echoing. The music is reverberating, and I don't know how to fix that. OBS constantly does things to test my patience like a 4-year-old. So, I did say we, or us, which might imply that there's somebody else besides the two of us, and I'm stumbling right now, so I'm just going to say you are correct. We have a guest today. To help us out, please welcome ReadyFready. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good, good. You are here to help us out with finally, yes, we're returning to some core episodes. We're finally doing the combat roles, and we're starting with DPS. And Freddy is here to help us out. Freddy, where are you hailing from?
Currently, Martinsburg, West Virginia.
That's not what I meant.
Look at that. Mark Zassa's location on a live show. Hashtag canceled.
No.
But just Marcus, not me.
The funny thing is I already knew he was
I
going
didn't dox anyone.
I already knew he was going to say it. And I already knew that was going to be my response. So, no, you are from Lainy's community, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yes, just like a lot of our other guests, like Venus. Actually, is Venus the only other one from...
But we have Quinn later, but
yes.
Quinn's also from there. Yeah.
Yes. So yet another...
All the guests have been my friends.
Yes, on the PC side of things. So, but yeah, today we are going to talk about the DPS role. But before we get into it, we want to remind you that Legends Rise has an amazing Discord community, and you can find the links for that on our Twitter or Facebook at LegendsRiseESO. We also have an Instagram where we post pics of our adventures, and you can find that at LegendsRiseESO as well. And we are on YouTube at LegendsRiseESO channel, so if you're listening to this through our podcast, you can find the links to all of our stuff in the description, and vice versa if you are watching on YouTube, including a link for the Discord there as well. We also have a Legends Rise guild we are working to build on Xbox and a platform, which is where I am, so if you want to join, you can ask in Discord or come find me on Xbox at Everyone's Problem spelled with a 0, no E at the end. And we have a Twitch channel. Come check me out at LegendsRiseESO for Tribute Tuesdays, where I provide a sort of next day post show as well as play some Tales of Tribute. I am also trying to stream Thursdays as well, and any other chance I can get, so come check it out. It's a lot of fun. Finally.
Going down the rabbit hole.
What?
Going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's kind of fun because I get a wee bit inebriated and I say the weirdest things. I don't even remember now, but I remember the last stream was a lot of fun. So, finally, if you love listening to us here and want more, you can go to patreon.com/LegendsRiseESO. And for $5, the price for less than a gallon of gas, you can get a lot of cool stuff like shoutouts, raffle entries, ad-free episodes, early episodes of the show, since we record on Monday and release on Fridays, and more. You help us improve the show, meet our personal goals, and keep the lights on. This week, I do want to give a shout out to our very first patron, Jacob Byers. Thank you so much. I thought all hope was lost. I was finally going to take my cyanide capsule. Just, I'm tired of everybody. I don't care anymore. But no, I appreciate so much. Every little bit helps. I could go on and on, which I believe I did during my interview about how much I love our community and everyone. And we have another person who joined the Discord this morning from across the pond. So I'm very excited to slowly build up our community and have all these wonderful conversations and stuff. So with that, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Oh God, this is gonna be fun. So we're gonna start out with, what is DPS? First off, it stands for damage per second. This role is the primary role of the game. All roles deal damage, but not all roles are DPS. For example, my tank can deal above average DPS for a tank, but it is not a DPS role. It might be able to be counted as slightly a hybrid, but we're not really going to go into...
If your tank's doing damage, I feel like that's problematic, and maybe not even your real tank.
Oh, that's hurtful.
I'm kidding. But as you know, most support roles, their role is to be a support role.
Yes.
Their primary goal is not to deal damage.
Yes, no, exactly. That's what the DPS is for. Support roles can deal damage. Some builds do have the potential to do slightly higher output, but it's usually not for direct damage purposes. It's usually to fulfill a different purpose. So, like, my older build was Bahar's Curse and Leeching Plate, and that helped me to stay alive pretty much indefinitely. So it helped the DPS because I was dealing above average damage, but it was also keeping me alive. So if, the team went down, I can just, keep on kiting and staying alive until I could get my my resurrection ult up to get everybody up and continue the boss fight or whatever we're doing.
Honestly, one of my favorite things as the healer, which we'll go on in later weeks, is when all the DPS are being dumb and standing and stupid, and then they die and then I die because all the ads are on me, and then the tank just kind of solos the boss.
I do that a lot. I look behind me, I'm like, oh, okay, everyone's
and
dead,
all the
cool.
DPS are like, fuck it.
All I can do is hope that that everybody dies in a nice little pile for me. As I've said before, it's always fun to see like your team be like wholly surprised that the tank can resurrect, being a necromancer, and it's like, why? All necro tanks should have res on the back bar, but we're not talking about tanking. We're talking about DPS, of course. But that's a nice little side tangent to let you guys know that DPS is focused on damage. So. And Freddie, if you have anything, don't feel or feel free to chime in whenever. I'm a little out of sorts right now, so this is kind of a perfect time for you to be on, because I'm like just barely keeping it together here.
Know the feeling.
I feel like this is like every time we record.
No.
Yes.
It is. I swear to God, though, every time something goes wrong, it's either hardware or one of us is sick or moving or whatever.
Or someone decides to move the recording day and not tell the other person.
We don't talk about that. We were just doing it on Tuesdays for a while, so I thought, let's do it to Tuesday.
We did 2 Tuesdays. That was not a while.
Really, it felt
long. You're just like, okay, we've decided that we're going to Tuesdays, and I'm just like, when did we decide this? When, Marcus?
I don't know. I've had so much scheduling I've had to do. It's messed with my brain on who I'm scheduling for what. So it might have been where I had like mistaken you for either one of our magic nights or the household scheduling or something like that. So there are 2 things to do DPS for. There's PvE DPS and there's PvP DPS. And I know a lot of well, maybe not a lot, but quite a bit of this information we've gone over before, but it's no surprise that we're probably going to repeat information quite a bit because a lot of stuff overlaps. Lainy, do you want to go over PvP? I guess Freddy, you do PvP, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do either one of you want to kind of describe PvP DPS roles a little bit?
Yes, everyone's running Oaken Soul right now. Or Broken Soul, or Borken Soul if you're a werewolf.
That is an accurate statement.
It is an accurate statement, because, once Oaken Soul came out, the meta for PvP way changed. I know we'll talk about this in a later episode with Venus when we go more in depth on PvP. But I remember when the first nights after Oaken Soul came out, our group actually, and I was healing that night, we had Freddy run a 1-bar Sampton. And the damage, Freddy, the damage.
It was stupid.
It was so stupid. And, obviously, Broken Soul obviously changed the meta for other supports as well. So our support builds and our healers had to change how we're doing things. We had to change some gear around, But, that's the thing, one DPS thing can change the entire meta for everyone else. For example, every single imp in Cyrodiil is running Broken Soul and Shooting Star. So they have it up all the time, and it hurts.
Oof. That's a painful alt.
It is, and Shooting Star is the one that gives you ultimate based on how many people it hit.
That's right.
And with the heroism from Oaken Soul, which I think should be nerfed. I think heroism and Major Force are going to be the first ones to go once sales finally drop off, and they're just like, you guys have had your fun. We're taking this back now.
Well, that's funny because Shooting Star, it's a Mages Guild ultimate, so you can run that on any class, which is ridiculous.
Assuming you want to hate yourself and gather all the books.
Yeah. we'll definitely cover on how to make that a little bit easier, but yeah, Mages Guild is something where if you're not interested in leveling it up, all you have to do is pick up the books as you're questing. But if you're intentionally trying to grind out for it, it can be a pain.
It can be. It definitely can be.
Yeah, I remember running Shooting Star on the DK, on my DK DPS, which was absolutely insane. So, actually, 1-bar DK with Shooting Star sounds really great, because Battle Roar is a thing.
Let's not even talk about how DKs are right now. If you want to go for stupid easy DPS and PvP, DK is your way to go. And with Oaken Soul, you can have Corrosive up 80% of the time.
Agreed.
Ooh, and my other character's a DK. Might be a good
DK is just... Mag DK is super buff. Stamsork's super buff right now. Templar has always been super buffed. I don't remember a time when Templar was nerfed that bad.
Interesting, yeah.
Actually, during a test it was. I want to say a year and a half ago, where they put the Templar jabs on the global cooldown. Because it was considered an AoE.
Was it?
So there was a cooldown to be... It couldn't be spammed. So you could use it every, 3 seconds, I think their timer was?
I think I remember that.
Speaking of DPS, I've just been sent a series of screenshots of very salty people with a vet dungeon.
For what reason?
Hold on. Let me read this. Angry people, basically. Wow. And people say that PvPers are the, toxic ones.
Well,
I think quick on that. I like to joke about it, but, as I do both PvP and PvE, obviously there's a lot of salty people in both, and a lot of toxic people in both. Everyone has the opportunity to be toxic.
Yeah,
it's not more PvE or more PvP. There's a lot in both.
Yeah,
PvP just gets a bigger rep for it because teabagging does exist.
I said it in the interview with 10th Divine. The consumer market is the worst. It just is. So PvE is the other side of that, so PvP is, we've talked about before a little bit, and we're eventually when Mid-Year Mayhem comes up, I probably towards the end of this month will drop the earlier recorded episode with Venus. But PvP is basically like, yeah, Battlegrounds, Cyrodiil, Imperial City, stuff like that. You're gearing yourself differently to fight players than you are in, say, PvE, where you're fighting, mobs, and, bosses, NPC stuff.
I mean, there are sets that do exist that only affect players. There's CP that exists that only affects non-players.
Yes.
And there are passives, like there is a Fighters Guild that affects players. There's a Fighters Guild passive that affects players, and that's why Dawnbreaker hurts on werewolves and vampires.
Yeah, I will say, I guess, skipping ahead to talk about a little bit about builds, you do have to gear differently for PvP fights than you do PvE. There are builds where you can run both, but probably not near as effectively if you wholly geared towards one or the other.
Oh, of course not. Like, for example, a PvP proc healer is going to run different things than a PvE proc healer.
Right, because you're dealing with more than just 4 people or more than just a trial group. You're dealing with upwards of 25, 30 people in a Zerg, well, if you're running Cyrodiil kind of thing. I mean, even Imperial City, it can get
Well,
flooded
just
with
as an
people.
example, the set Savage Werewolf is amazing in PvP right now with the latest patch. You're not going to really see it anywhere in PvE.
Right.
And that's the same of like some sets transfer over, and obviously no CP, no proc is a whole different ball game for sets, and which has a lot less build diversity to a point. You don't see a lot of build diversity in proc either, with everyone running Savage Werewolf, Plague Break, or Dark Conversions.
Oh, build diversity. Yeah, that is a good terminology right there. Build diversity. And you brought up a great point. You do see more build diversity in things like in PvE content and like dungeons and stuff. At least if you're not going for like meta trials.
Yeah, all the end game like DPS are running almost exactly the same thing.
Which kind of sucks. But I think more so PvP, you're going to see where everybody's running the same thing, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whereas PvE is where, and I think even in harder content, like as long as you're completing those vet trials, because vet trials are vet dungeons, even the DLC vet dungeons, there's room there for creativity as long as you're clearing that content. You don't have to run exactly what everyone else is running, but in PvP you kind of do. If you expect to
PvP,
win.
there's a clear meta. That being said, my stand-in on my werewolf that runs Titanborn Pariah runs it in proc campaigns, and it works fine. Obviously, like, have always loved the higher skill floor of no proc. Unfortunately, the problem with that is people want to run proc sets, so the campaign is basically dead.
Yeah.
There's a big population problem, which we're hoping Major Mayhem will bring some people in. So if you are in PCNA and you'd like to learn PvP, I'm your gal.
So we've been talking about mag and Stam builds, which is basically your two kind of DPS. You have magic and stamina. Technically hybrid exists, but we're only going the basics, so we're not going to bog people down with, well, how do I run a hybrid? Honestly, right now, hybridization is actually effective. Hybridization is actually quite new.
Hybridization is at its best right now.
Yes, but it is quite new. I mean, hybridization has kind of always been a thing. It could be done, but not to the peakness that it's seen now. But
we talked about, sorry, Marcus.
Oh, no, you're fine.
We talked about races a while ago in an earlier episode that I'm sure you guys remember. For example, Magicka DPS, the top, technically, if you really want to go min-max, High Elf is your best bet. But Dark Elf is also great right now, and it's nice to see Dark Elf not nerfed, super badly like it has been, because it's great for hybrid races right now.
Yes.
Hybrid, Dark Elf is the best for hybrid.
Yeah, and if you're setting aside all the hybridization stuff, you want to make sure that the build you're going for, so if you're going for a Magicka build, you want to make sure that your primary resource pool is Magicka. You still want to, if you're going that route, you still want a fair bit in Stam, just because you need to block and dodge and do things like that. So, but if you're, and even if you're a Stam, there has always been sort of this hybridization where you're...
I would disagree, actually.
Really?
From what I've been seeing and talking to a few of my PvE DPS friends who do endgame content, basically all mag and Stam DPS are putting all 64 points into their primary.
Well, no, that I meant. Your attributes, yes. What I'm saying is you still want to make sure that you have some Stam to do your movements. If you're a mag build. If you're a Stam build, you want to make sure that you still have some mag, because there are going to be skills. You're not just going to run all Stam skills. You can, you might, there are builds like that, but there are going to be some abilities where you look for that, you're looking at that build and go, oh, I need Magicka for it. You always need both resource pools, but damage is based on your higher stat. We're not going to get into the...
you get about 15k of the, secondary stat, the whichever is, like, say if you're a mag 2 and you have, like, 33k mag, you have, like, 15k Stam. Like, that's normally enough for the abilities you need to do. If you need more, you can always enchants do exist.
Yeah, and actually that's another good point. You're on fire today. Of a good way to figure out, well, how do I stack up my stats? Take your highest resource pool and cut it in half, and that should be your second one, roughly. So like you said, running 33k Magicka, you should be running about 15k, 16, 17, whatever, stamina. Again, you want...
And that's normally without anything else put in that. You normally get that just base.
Yeah, you do get it normally.
Yeah, so unless you really need more, it should be fine. But if you need to run a couple Magicka abilities with a Stam and you're finding you're running out of it, you can put a couple enchants in there. I would not change your attribute points.
No,
that's more of a PvP thing.
It's literally, you always want, like you said, at least in PvP, you always want whatever build you're doing. So like for tanks, we're always going to put all of our stuff into health. That's what a tank does. If you're a mag build, you want to put all 64 attribute points into Magicka, same with stamina. So, but yeah, again, there's always going to be kind of that little bit of hybridization there where you're always going to be taking from one or the other, but your build should be effectively focusing on one type of damage output.
And that's why Dark Elf works so well, because it gives you both mag and stam.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you're going hybrid, and you don't have to, I'm just saying that your best bet for, like, if meta or min-maxing, that would be Dark Elf.
Yeah, and
you could really run whatever race you want to run, because any race can work. Some races you might have to work a little harder, like, say, a stamina race as a healer. Like, you're going to have to work a little harder, but it can be done.
Yeah, and something that, that has been one of the highest touted things about this game, you can be whatever you want to be, and you can still be effective with it.
Just like your mommy said.
You can do whatever you want.
I'll see myself out.
No, that's okay. I'm thinking, do I really want to do a really dark joke right now? Probably not. Let's be a little sensitive today. A little bit.
All right, so Freddy,
I'll save that for my streams.
Right. Freddy, you have some experience in PvE DPS, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what to expect? I know Marcus and I don't I'm learning PvE DPS. I know Marcus is a tank. Tank.
It's been since before Elsewhere since I've done DPS and PvE. So a while.
So why don't you give us a little rundown about PvE DPS, what to expect, what someone newer to DPS would really need to know?
I would say someone new to DPS for PvE, really don't focus on your gear as of yet, because that's objective unless you really want endgame content. If you're just playing to play and just running dungeons with your friends, really any good, even craftable sets like Order's Wrath paired with, Hunting's Rage, if you want to just do straight crit damage.
Right.
It works. What you really want to focus on is learning your build, learning your race and your class. The rotation is going to be key.
Right.
Weapons choices. Are you going to be dual wield? Are you going to be a Magicatoon and use a staff? Or nowadays, are you going to be a Magicatoon and use daggers for the extra crit damage?
Hmm.
And it's just your abilities. You want to just focus on learning your rotation, where to put your skills, how often to use your skills, what's spammable to use. That's where I was told to focus first, and then worry about farming gear later.
Right, because I think like a lot of builds that you see, they have a beginner build with, and normally you see Hundy's Rage on it from what I can tell. Um,
It's the basic Stam beginner set because it does give you that crit
mhm.
chance.
I think Julianos is the beginner mag
Yeah,
setup, isn't it?
baby's
Yeah.
first
Yeah,
sets. That's what those are.
yeah. Like they're like you get your gear, but I think that you're right that the most important thing is learning your rotation. Your gear can come later.
Yeah, because if you have all the gear you want, all the end game trial gear perfected, you have it all. But your rotation sucks, you're not going to be putting out any DPS. You're
Hmm.
going to have gold gear with a spaghetti noodle.
Oh yes. Well, I suppose we'll jump over to rotation and weaving. If you all can't tell, we're not doing this in any particular order. We're just following the conversation. There's a lot to talk about though. But yeah, like you said, rotation is a very important part of being a DPS. That is why I went to tanking, because I was basically told you are. I was still putting out damage. I was still a good DPS, but I wasn't like, cranking out 60, 70, 80k, which there has been a discussion lately.
It's over 100K now.
Yeah, and people are like,
Yeah, it's stupid.
okay, I think it's too much.
Dude, I know people who are parsing over 120K.
Yeah, yeah, and
Like
that's
it's insane. I remember when 90K used to be like the big thing that only the best could reach,
oh,
and now,
I remember 50, 60k used to be, ooh, wow.
oh yeah, but the meta changes and the way the patches change, they change the game and they up the damage. Um,
At some point though,
I
it doesn't make the fight fun.
I
Like,
do think though, because I went to healing in PvE, because I found it different than PvP DPS, but I went to healing in there just because I struggled and I didn't really have a good teacher. I think given your experience, if I were leading that kind of guild, I would, do my best to help that person get better before you go, oh, you suck, you should probably try this support thing. Whether or not it's good advice or not, I think you should always, try to help people. If they want a DPS, give them the tools and give them the help. Like, Freddy's helped me parse a lot of things. Like, my DPS isn't, like, good. Like, it's just not. But I spent, like, a half hour with Freddy, and my DPS increased by 10K. Like,
mhm.
I have a lot of work to go, before I'm like any good at PvE DPS. But oftentimes, helping people instead of telling them do this other thing is going to be a lot more beneficial for everyone.
Well, it's also the fact that like when you're running dungeons specifically, you're not going to be able to stand there and do your rotation for the entire fight. You're going to have
No, mechs
to
exist.
run mechanics and pay attention to what your healer's doing, what your tank is doing.
Hmm.
Everyone has a job, and everyone has to pay attention to each other. So I get really irked when like the meta jocks come out and be like, "Well, you have to." I'm like, I mean, at as someone who used to DPS, I'm gonna say as long as you're doing enough damage to like you don't test
If you're
dummies are a
passing
thing.
a DPS check, you're fine.
Yeah, test dummies are a thing. But what I find is better is going to a boss that has a damage threshold.
Hmm.
Not an insane one, not like Walks Like Thunder. That world boss in Murkmire is just, it's meant to have like a dozen people on it, because the
Yes.
more you damage that thing, the more often it heals itself. It's ridiculous. But yeah, try to find a boss or something that has a threshold that is kind of low, and see if you can kill it or at least get close to it, because that's kind of how you know, okay, I'm doing okay. But and if you can do that without, because again, my brain just can't seem to fathom rotation. I'm not good at it. But I still was pretty good as a DPS. I cleared content, I cleared hard content, whatever. So It's kind of like that thing of, if you can graduate high school, do it, but if you're killing yourself to do it, don't worry about it.
The
So
GED is what this for.
yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, pace yourself, learn. Even learning part of rotation is fine. Biggest thing, and when I talk about this, I'm not thinking of any other class but the Dragon Knight, because honestly, the Dragon Knight is probably by far the that and the Templar easiest classes to learn on, because all you have to do with the DK is make sure that everything is constantly on fire.
Right. I think like there's three classes that really fulfill like all the roles like really well. And like the one that's the DK tank. You've got the Templar healer, and then you've got the Sorc DPS.
Yeah.
And like obviously like any class can do everything, but believe Freddy even like mentioned that to me, like just starting out on DPS, Pet Sorc is going to be a lot easier and the rotation's a lot easier than say Necro, which has to do all the dots.
Yeah, Necro.
And I know from playing a Necro healer, Necro is so rotation heavy.
Yeah,
You've always
Necromancer.
got to have your buffs up. I have this one buff that only lasts 6 seconds. Every 6 seconds, I have to get that up.
Which buff is that?
It is the Mender.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, it heals for a lot, but it only lasts 6 seconds.
yeah, I don't do the oh god, the bone totem anymore.
I actually don't mind the bone totem. Obviously like it's nice, but a Necro healer should always have Boneyard on it. Always, always,
Oh,
always.
yeah, no, absolutely. Boneyard is a game changer. Both of the morphs for it are a game changer.
And
Even
it
a necro
provides
tank.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
even
because I mean, if you're just running Unnerving, which I'd say is the best one to run on a support build, Avid if you're a DPS and can maybe even if you're running Triple Harmony, because you're going to do a lot more damage with that.
right.
But Unnerving provides Breach and Maim, which that means a Necro Healer does not have to run the Destro Staff because you've got it right there.
Yeah.
That's what they're running the Destro Staff for.
It's funny you mention equipment. We'll get back to other conversations. I promise. Because
I mean, this is kind of like just a overall. We're bringing into other support. We're bringing in the support roles just kind of to show you like just the differences between DPS and supports.
Yeah, this month is pretty much like kind of the month of combat. June was supposed to be the month of combat, but this month we'll be doing all 3 combat roles and probably dropping that sweet PvP episode we did with Venus about a month ago at this point. Wow.
Yeah, which means we'll have to record another one with him, given that Major Mayhem starts in August.
Yeah. So we can go into gear and weapons a little bit. Actually, it's funny, Freddy, you were talking about daggers on a mag build.
Yes.
I never thought of that before, but when you mentioned crit, before we continue on into gear, there's a few types of builds where you can go, and they are meant for like PvE and PvP separately, because in order to defeat players, you have to pretty much go straight raw damage. They're protected against crit, whereas like NPCs are not. So you can go crit heavy in dungeons and stuff. But I didn't think about that, where if you're running like a crit build, you can run a stamina-focused weapon on a mag build. That's actually kind of cool.
It started, I want to say, with the Blackwood patch. And then with this new High Isle patch, it's actually evolved into dual-wield front bar, two-handed back bar for Magtoons. Because of the Stampede and Carve giving the Sunder, and then the damage over time, and then the Carve giving the bleeding over time. And with the right group you don't have to worry about heavy attacking for resources, because you're going to get your shards from a Templar or your synergies or your orbs from a healer to replenish those resources. So right now the meta is dual wield front, two-handed back for Magtoons, and it's just ridiculous how much damage they put out now.
Oh yeah, and there are builds that work for if you want to run your Destro staves. But as Freddie was saying, it's all about damage output. So the endgame people are running melee weapons for the damage.
Yes.
Because even starting out, it was told that the stam tunes hit harder just because of the weapon damage.
Mm-hmm.
So
And mag tunes have always been technically known for hitting harder.
I don't know when it changed, but there was a point where mag tunes had to work harder to put out damage. I think that's where the damage over time abilities really came into effect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was actually
Yeah,
going to
those
say
dots are mean.
that earlier I was going to say when we were talking about magic and stamina that I do feel that Magicka is well, I don't know about now because stamina is starting to get a little bit of a push, but mag just has for a long time been the easier of the two to learn on because like there's so much that, which is funny because there's more stamina weapons than there are mag weapons. Mag, you just have the Destro stave and I guess the Resto stave.
There's 3 different types, and each type is better for other things. I think right now, the current meta is lightning staves. Some run fire staves, but it seems like most mag DPS are running lightning staves that are running them.
Right, yeah. And, you know, Freddie, you were talking about resource gain, and that's in there too. We were talking about rotations and stuff. You know, light attacking, we've talked about that in the combat basics. Heavy attacking, that grants you your resources back. So if you're heavy attack with a stave, you're going to get your mag back. If you're heavy attacking with a sword or daggers, whatever, you're going to get stamina back. So that was a good point to bring up. I'm trying to... Oh, right, we were going to talk about, speaking of which, yeah, gear and weapons. Because I guess we kind of covered it already, where mag builds, at least in days past, stuck with Destro staves. And then stamina stuck with, you know, sword. There's actually a lot of weapons for stamina builds. You know, swords, daggers, great axes, bows. Bow builds are kind of fun. Because bow
builds, I love those.
They're unique in that they're based because
bows offer the best mobility out of any other weapon.
Yeah, because you figure mag only has ranged weapons, whereas stamina has mostly melee, but it does have the bow as a ranged weapon, and a very effective ranged weapon too. If you're throwing down caltrops and hail of, was it
Endless Hail?
Endless Hail.
Yeah.
That's a great AOE combo.
Do you know what the best reason to have bow in PvP nowadays is? Freddie knows.
Poison.
Bombard.
Oh, Bombard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That skill in PvP is broken because there's no cooldown.
Right, so they can just spam it.
And you're immobilized.
When we're running in our like actual comp group, the logs normally show us about 6 to 7 million damage just in Bombard alone.
And now with
Oaken, it's a stun.
And with the Oaken now, you're having people Oaken Bombard, and it's ridiculous because Bombard's hitting for 8k a piece. It's ridiculous.
It's broken.
Well, and, you know, we've talked about Oaken Soul a lot, and for those of you who don't know by now, it provides a laundry list of buffs for you. It restricts you from using your back bar, sure, but
you don't need to. You don't need to put on those buffs. You know, that's what the back bar is for. It's your buff bar.
Right.
The way I play, anyway. But like, there's a list. Like, you get weapon crit, you get damage done, you get reduced damage taken, yada yada yada. And heroism, you gain 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. Your ultimate gain is tremendous.
While in combat.
While in combat, correct.
Yeah.
It's important to mention the reason we're bringing up Oaken Soul or Broken Soul or Borken Soul so much is it is the biggest thing for DPS, especially in PvP. It's not going to be used by probably as many PvE DPS, although the solo arenas builds running it, it's amazing.
It's definitely not going to get used by tanks at all. It's because tanks
support I don't think should be running it. We had a friend that did a 1-bar healer, and it was okay. But we had someone on a 2-bar healer who was right up. It was a crit healer on a Sork, and he was right there. Like the guy with Oaken barely passed him. I think you lose too much utility as a healer running Oaken Soul.
Right.
And for example, not everyone in your group is going to be running Oaken Soul, so that's buffs that they don't have that if a healer is on a 1-bar, they can't provide to the group.
Right, exactly. We will go over buffs and debuffs in another episode, but they're very important for all roles, but specifically DPS, because both healer and tank, I mean, it goes in order from least to greatest. Tanks don't need as many self buffs. And they use a lot of debuffs because they're support, but in terms of there's only a specific list of things where they need self buffs for. Basically, they don't need to buff their damage or their crit or anything like that. Healers are different. Healers are kind of a combination of the two, where it is useful for them to have a laundry list of stuff, and we're going to cover that on the next episode, I believe, where, healers function a lot like DPS, except they're not dealing damage. That's, dealing damage is how they heal, is essentially how that works. But DPS benefits from having literally as many buffs on themselves and as many debuffs on whatever they're attacking as possible. So buffs and debuffs, extremely important for DPS, and of course, very selective when we're talking about the other two roles. But we are talking about DPS, so buffs and debuffs, extremely important.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot that can go into making the DPS good. A lot that goes into the difference between good and great, I guess. Part of it's like Freddie was saying, it's not just about gear. Like you can have the best gear in the game, all golded out and all traded and all enchanted, all correctly. And if your rotation sucks, you're not going to cut it as a DPS. Rotation, you've got to practice, work on that, like parse it out. Like even if you don't want to do like a full like parse for like 10 minutes or whatever it is, spend a few minutes here and there, like every day, just practicing, because that's how you're going to succeed, is by your rotation. And that's in PvP and PvE.
Well, talking about gear and weapons as well, first off, something I should point out because I wrote it down. All weapons are DPS weapons, except for sword and shield. It can do it, but it's not meant for that.
If you're soloing, 100% take a sword and shield on your back bar, because that's going to give you some good defense.
Right, but
otherwise, DPS aren't going to really be running that.
no, because it's primarily for tanking. Shield gives you another armor slot. It gives you more defenses, and then the sword is pretty much for like Crusher enchantment to help again lower those resistances on NPCs and stuff like that.
Now, I think this doesn't apply to PvE healing, but you will see a lot of PvP healers running sword and board.
PvE healers?
PvP healers.
Or PvP healers. Really?
Yeah, I said most healers are, especially in small man healers should always be running sword and board. Back bar. So you do rest of sword and board.
Okay.
It gives you the defense, because you've got to PvP, you got to build tanky.
That's true. So
especially as a healer, so it gives you more defense.
Assaulted, you can just go sword and board and try to keep yourself alive until the rest of your team is like, oh, our healer's being attacked. We need to like get the heat off of them so they can go back to healing us and keeping us alive, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, so Pariah and sword and board is a great combo for a healer. Now that being said, if you are a well-known healer in PvP, you basically have to just put like a big target on your face.
Right.
Like, look at me, I'm a healer.
Oh, in terms of gear too, we've talked about like gear weight. We've talked about how like all heavy, or at least the classic 511 is pretty much reserved for tanks. Although you would probably say that people are going to be running more heavy pieces in PvP, right?
Well, actually, it really depends. You're gonna see way more medium armor on support and DPS than you are any other. Like healers and PvP are all running medium armor so they can get shuffle. And I believe a lot of DPS are too. There's a lot less mag DPS in organized PvP groups than there is stamina DPS. Um, which I think that's true of our group, isn't it, Freddie?
Yes, I want to say there's maybe
We have one
one.
mag DK, and
Yeah, I think
that's
that's
where
it.
we're at. Yeah, and then the rest is all stamina DPS. Basically just stamdens. So you have your stamdens, you have your mag DK, you have your support sorks, and then you have your healers. And organized PvP comp groups try to run 4 healers.
Yeah.
And they're all in medium armor. Now, most every build you're gonna see is running 5-1-1.
Yes.
Whether it be it's for that undaunted passive. That's
Yeah.
why we do it. In PvP we build tanky.
Yeah, I know that they have changed how passive abilities work for armor in the last couple years. Did it change with Greymore or Blackwood?
Greymore, I believe.
I think it was
Okay.
Greymore.
Right,
I
where you
think it
have
might have
instead
been.
of
I think it was
re-
Markarth actually, the last part of Greymore that they did that.
oh yeah, where it came up with the positive and negatives
Right,
of
right.
wearing
Yeah,
the armor. Yeah, it
yeah.
had to be like the Western Skyrim type
It
update.
was either. I think it was. Don't quote me. I think it was Markarth, or I think it was one of like the dungeon packs that they released, like the second one. It was one of those.
Yeah, regardless of those changes, I still think that because I remember the discussion was, is this going to change the meta for how people run equipment or gear weight at
It
all?
really didn't.
And no, it really
I thought
didn't.
it was gonna cause a lot of issues, and I was just like, oh my, and I wasn't really that happy about it. Granted, like it was kind of like how Skyrim was, but it didn't end up changing that. And I think part of that is, especially in PvP, like supports and healers are all running Wild Hunt.
Yeah.
So you don't really notice the loss of speed because you have the run fast ring.
Yeah, so I think that, if I can safely say that if you, and especially on PvE, if you're a stamina build, you're probably going to run 5 medium, 1 heavy, 1 light. And you always got to remember it's probably going to be your monster set that's going to be your off pieces. You always want to have the shoulders be the lighter of the two because your head is going to count as a heavy slot. So yeah,
Your head, chest, and legs give the most armor.
yeah, so if you're running medium, you're going to run light for the shoulder, heavy for the head. If you're running mag, you're going to be running 5 light, again, heavy for the head, medium for the shoulder piece. Tanks, of course, we run 5 heavy, helmet is medium, shoulders are light, so pretty much most of the cases, the shoulder's always going to be the light piece, depending on what you're running. But yeah, and it's because you're trying to get your damage up as high as it'll go. So like, I'm looking at the medium bonuses, which by the way, I thought it was funny that medium armor only got bonuses, but no penalties.
Well, it actually makes sense because it's kind of middle of the road, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah, it is.
yeah.
So yeah,
So you
you
don't
get.
have like I think its penalty though is not having a lot of the bonuses from heavy and light armor, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's really the penalty is that they don't get those bonuses.
Yes.
They only get medium armor stuff.
So dexterity for medium, you increase your critical damage and healing done by 2%. So this is where, yeah, actually, Laney's talking about healers are running medium armor, and this is kind of why, because you're increasing your chances for healing as well. But 2% for every piece of medium armor equipped. And the best part, too, about doing 5-1-1 is you're always going to have bonuses from all 3 armor slots. May not be a lot, but every little bit helps, especially when you're talking about DPS. Every little bit of resource gain helps. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In PvE and PvP as both.
Actually, in PvE, they've changed it.
Really?
They're not counting on the undaunted passives anymore. I've been looking at different builds since I'm trying to do more PvE.
I think
like this.
What I've noticed is some builds are, but they're just going for the base stat. They're not going for the 501.
Right. Like I'm trying out this Warden. The Warden build I'm working on until I do like the new trials that came out. I'm still running Relic Wind with Kinra.
Mm-hmm.
It's calling for light Head and Shoulders, both
Interesting.
pieces, and
They're
that's
running
because you
just
get
all
more
across the
crit.
board.
Medium body pieces, light Head and Shoulders, because the extra crit you get from light armor. Look at those light armor passes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
To
Now, the reason I was mentioning he was running medium armor is actually, obviously the passives help, but the biggest reason is the medium armor skill that you can morph into Shuffle. And what it does is you gain major evasion, decreasing damage from area attacks by 20% for 20 seconds. Each piece of medium armor worn removes and grants immunity to snares and immobilizations for 1 second. So that is the big reason why healers are running medium armor, so they can have Shuffle. So you have a root break and evasion. So you need a source of major evasion.
Right. And to clarify, when we talk about the Undaunted passives, we're talking about Undaunted Metal and Undaunted Command. So Undaunted Metal is increase all your pools, your health, magic, and stamina by 2% per type of armor worn. So if you're wearing all three, you have a bonus of 6% to all your stat pools, which is no small thing. Because again, every little bit helps. And it's one of those things where it's kind of just you're gonna do the setup anyway, you might as well benefit from it. And Undaunted Command is activating a synergy, restores 4% of your max health, stamina. Oh, okay, that's not per never mind. Undaunted
No,
Command
it's just base.
yeah, it's
Undaunted Metal, which increases your max stats, is why people are running 501, and they're still doing it in PvP, because in PvP, like, healers are using like at least one stamina ability, and that's Resolving Vigor. So you need to have stamina. So like a healer in PvP is best as an Imperial.
Yeah. I'm trying to look over and see if there is anything else to really go over. Oh, actually, I kind of mentioned easy classes a little bit, but what I mentioned Dragonite being one of the easiest, and you said Sork, so I guess we kind of more or less
I think it really depends. Dragonite is very single target.
I would say it's more AoE because
I think it has a couple AoEs, but when I was running it, I don't know if you found this different, Freddy, but I felt it was much more single target focused than AoE focused.
Well, I've never really ran a Dragon Knight DPS, but I've ran a tank many times as a Dragon Knight. If to put it over to DPS wouldn't be that hard, but there's a lot of similarities between there's AoE and single target builds, but I would want to say your biggest one's going to be like your Engulfing Flame. That's going to cover a cone in front of you.
Is
you
got your technically considered the easiest because of the pets that are doing damage for you?
If you run it as a 2-pet Sork, that cuts your rotation to 3 abilities per bar.
Which is why it's considered the easiest, because it has the easiest rotation if you're running the 2 pets.
Right. Now, starting off, 4 abilities per bar, if you consider the Imp pet that does like the AoE.
Pet, right?
Right. You can hit the Imp pet to use the ability to do an AoE that stuns people. Otherwise, they're just going to do single targets, the 2 of them together.
Okay.
But still, that's 4 out of 5 abilities plus your ultimate, which is basically, for PvE, is your elemental, your giant elemental that deals damage and stuns. Yeah. So basically, yeah, it's your 3 abilities and then your 3 dots on the back bar.
Yeah, if you're looking at, since I ran Mag DK for, I don't know, like 4 years or whatever, so you're looking at like Inhale, you can use Talons if we're talking about AoEs, Ash Cloud, sorry, I got
Ash Cloud is poor man's Sap Essence.
The thing is they've changed it recently. So, okay, it's Eruption. So Eruption for this, and keep in mind, I have stripped him, so the damage numbers are kind of weird. Summon a Scorching Cloud of Ash at the target location, dealing 4,644 flame damage immediately, reducing enemy movement speed, and dealing over 1,000 flame damage in the area every 1 second for 15 seconds. The eruptive damage can occur once every 10 seconds, so that's new. Yeah, I haven't been on the DK in a very long time, so I did notice when I've come onto him every so often to do like events or stuff, he's an extra character, you know, whatever. I have noticed the changes, so it does run very differently from the last time I've ran it, but you still do have a good number of AoEs, especially if you're talking about like if you're running either Shooting Star or the Dragon Knight standard. You do have quite a good number, and Fiery Breath technically could, since it can hit multiple targets, depending on how you move. So there are a good number of AoE type stuff, and we've talked about single target, which are attacks that, as they say, they target only one thing. AoEs, we've talked about area of effects, and we've talked about dots, which is damage over time. So, which can be affected by any type of ability, whether it's AoE or single target. And those are abilities that are constantly ticking off damage as long as the ability is active.
Right. I think that's a good, like, obviously there's going to be some classes that aren't going to be the easiest to learn DPS on.
Like
Nightblade.
Nightblade.
Like Necro and Nightblade. Nightblade is a difficult, complex class, and that's why you see a lot of people, they don't like Nightblade as a class. Because I played Nightblade since I started playing the game, 8 years ago. I took a little break, I took a few breaks actually. But, I stuck with it and I love it. I know people that tried it and don't like it. It does have a higher skill for to play it. It is more difficult. When a lot of people first saw the game, they thought, oh, Assassin class, this is going to be cool. But it plays more difficult than, say, a Pet Sorc or, a DK or a Templar.
Yeah, if you're looking for bang for your buck, I would definitely go Dragon Knight, just because you can, again, as long as you're setting things on fire and whatnot, you're good to go. I never did play much on a Sorc, so I can't really say to the experience of that. Templar's the other one, where it has some good DPS power behind it. But yeah, the difference between somebody who wants to play a DK and somebody who wants to play a Nightblade is simply patience. If you're just wanting to go out and kill, just mow things down, do a Dragon Knight. But if you're looking for a challenge, something that's going to take a while to learn and to master, you don't care how long it takes you, then yeah, Nightblade is a really good class.
Necro and Nightblade are great classes if you want to hate yourself for a little bit.
And some people do.
Well, like they're both great classes. They're so fun classes. They are just more difficult to play. You have to put a lot more effort into learning it.
I want to throw this out there that the Nightblade, as difficult as it is, with my experience, I think the Mag Nightblade is a little bit easier than, say, the Stam.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would definitely agree with that. And, I never got into Stamblade much. I have one. But Magblade was just kind of the thing I loved doing, so I played Magblade.
Magblade in PvE makes trash fights really simple because Sap Essence is a horrible, fun ability to use. You just jump in the middle and Sap Essence.
Remember when Skyreach was the biggest XP farm and like everyone was running a Magblade because of the Sap Essence?
Yeah, heals plus damages. It's stupid.
Yep.
Now you throw an Oaken Soul Ring on a Magblade running Sap Essence.
Oh god.
Hello.
Yeah, I tried Magblade with Oaken Soul. I just don't think it functions as well. Also, you're basically even more of a kamikaze.
Right.
You're
in PvP,
most likely not surviving that bomb.
Right. But if you go, like, say, if you want to do like a Vet Maelstrom or Vet Vanish Ray, and those trash fights can be really bad. I would say an Oaken Soul on a Mag Blade running a Maelstrom or whatever Vadish ran, I think would be very viable. Just because you have that major protection, you have that major heroism for your Soul Tether. You have your Sap Essence, which is going to hit like a Mack truck.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to really cover? I think we actually did a really good job. We covered quite a bit. All right, cool.
Yeah,
I'm
I
all
don't
alone out
have
here.
anything. Yeah, no, I don't have anything. I mean, races are personal taste, but you have your meta builds. Classes, again, it's your taste, your play style, but you have your meta, what's going to be the best. Mag's always going to be high elf,
Yeah,
just because of the raw spell damage they get.
Yeah, and I think Red Guard is the go-to for Stam, isn't it? Because of the reduction cost. I think
Honestly,
it's on the Red Guard.
it's not even the reduction cost for abilities. Imperial Red Guard, I think that's a moot point with just the amount as especially if you're running solo, yes, those are going to be really great classes to pick for DPS. But if you're running groups, random normals, vets, whatever, friends with guildies or whatever, you're not going to worry about your sustain because you're going to have your orbs that your healers throw, your spears that the Templars are going to throw to replenish your resources. Stam's a little bit different because you have options for Dark Elf because they have the Stam and Magic pool bonus. They have, and then Khajiits have the extra crit. You have Wood Elves with the movement speed, and I think they get base stamina too.
I think so.
Yeah, and then your Orcs have the weapon damage. Your Nords have your health and your ultimate gain. So Stam gets a little bit more relaxed when it comes to just enjoyable PvE content. But again, every build has a meta race. Every build has a meta class, whether Stam or Mag, and it's just how do you want to play? Do you want to be the dude out there that's hitting 120k DPS on a parse dummy and then going into a dungeon and just hitting 70k? Because you're never gonna hit your
You're
numbers.
never gonna hit your parse because of mechanics, and they exist.
Yep. Because things don't stand still.
And that's what really bugs me about guilds saying, oh, you want to join in on this vet trial? Oh, you need to hit at least 90 to 110k on a trial dummy. My argument is, we're not standing there parsing a trial boss. So I can understand a minimum requirement. Don't give me a parse requirement. Give me a minimum DPS.
Which is usually, I believe, about 30 to 40k, isn't it?
I would say for dungeons.
Okay. Yeah, trials is going to be a lot more.
So trials, I would want to say 60 to 70, even I would say 60 to 70 minimum. But that's nowadays, that's pretty fairly easy to get as long as you practice and put in the effort.
Yeah, I've been out of the game on that one for way too long.
Dude, if you ever want to get back, let me know. I'll sit and I'll watch you parse. I'll help. Well, we have a great community over here. We got people making gear, go farming gear with you for hours on end and no complaints because we just have an insane amount of fun doing it. So if you ever want to get back in the DPS game, let me know. We'll get you back into it.
Yeah, which means Marcus needs to play on PC.
Yeah, which isn't going to work because apparently my PC can't run it anymore. Don't know why. It just does not run well at all. My Series X, smooth as butter. I can't even take a drink of coffee because the load times are so quick. But no, I have an idea because you guys were mentioning, DK, PvP, Oaken Soul stuff earlier. And I might get back into PvP a little bit for console. God knows there's enough fun stuff to do over there. So, but well said on the rest. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode of Legends Rise. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm gonna go blow up now. God, this damn allergy congestion. Remember, if you want more stuff, you can check out our Discord. Once again, the links to those are on our Facebook and Twitter at LegendsRiseESO. Come be a part of the fun and make some new friends. And if you want more out of your experience, you can go to patreon.com/LegendsRiseESO and become a Legends Plus member. Music is Sons of Skyrim Epic Metal Remix, edited by me and performed by Brandon Strader. And you can find him on YouTube and Facebook at BESTRADER. That's Best Raider. Lainy, where can the fine folks find you at?
You guys can still find me at Dexy the One-Eyed. That could be changing in the future, so we'll see.
Oh, that's so horrifying.
I
Freddie,
know.
where can people find you at, or do you have anything you want people to find you on?
If people do need to find me, they can reach out to Adexi. She knows how to get a hold of me. I'm not a professional by any means of the definition. I'm just here to have fun and maybe be a troll every now and again. But most likely, I just really enjoy helping people. So if you guys have any questions, I am in the Legends Rise Discord. Look for me, ReadyFready. Have any questions, concerns? Do you want to get better? Let me know. I have a pool of resources I can draw from to get you the help you need. On PC, at least.
Excellent. And you can find me on Xbox at Everyone's Problem, spelled with a 0 and no E at the end. Come hang out with me on the North American server, or if you aren't up for ESO, come join us on Halo, COD, Minecraft, and a bunch of other stuff. Any final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, we had like a pretty good, I think this was a good start of the combat because it was mostly EPF, but we also, hinted at other things we're going to be talking about in the following weeks.
Yep, exactly. I think next episode is going to be healing, then we'll cap off with tanking, and then again, hopefully, we'll be dropping that PvP episode because you aren't going to be with us, Lainy, at the end of the month. But if not, we'll see what happens as we get closer, and we might do something a little different, but we'll see. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, we will see you in Tamriel.